I want to welcome everyone to our kickoff town hall on Town Meeting Day 2025 and money-related questions we're hoping to put on the ballot to Burlington voters. I'm Mayor Emma Mulvaney-Stanek. We are excited tonight to welcome all of you who are here in attendance, and I want to take a minute to really offer some gratitude to a large number of our city departments and staff, not only department heads, but a lot of their teams who put a lot of effort into tonight's presentation, to the design of this kickoff. As I continue to lead this city forward, we're really trying to push the community engagement side to feel different in the city of Burlington so people can get information that's in plain language, that is done in strategically different ways, because not everyone can come to an evening meeting. We try to make this accessible to folks by thank you for CCTV for being here tonight. And there'll be multiple ways to engage in the information we'll be sharing beyond tonight, of course. And so thank you to all the city staff, and I would like to just do a round of applause for everybody who's put their work in. So my main task tonight is to be pretty brief to kick us off, to give a little context of why we are talking about 3 sizable bonds tonight and give you context on the need and why the city is at this point. If you live in the city of Burlington, if you visit the city of Burlington, if you work in the city of Burlington, travel our streets, look at our sidewalks, look at our fire stations, our police station, you will see visually how much deferred maintenance has happened over the last several years in our city. It is real and it is significant. And now it is the time for us to be realistic around the need to invest in our city so that we could really thrive and move this city forward to a more vibrant set of city facilities, vibrant set of city resources, that our neighborhoods throughout the city can feel the support and investments that make this community livable, not only today, but well into the future. This is really an opportunity for us to advance the 3 main priorities I've put out as mayor around community safety, housing, which is ample and affordable in our community, and climate. And the reason being that in terms of our wastewater and water bonds, which you'll hear a lot more about in detail, we cannot move our climate goals forward for a clean lake and for the impacts we need to have in a proactive space for climate. And we certainly cannot densify our housing without looking at the massive need to increase our infrastructure capacity. And when we look at what the state legislature enabled us under the Home Act in the last couple of years, we cannot do our part as a city and as part of Vermont as a state for our critical housing need without doing the necessary underground work to be able to build out and support the new housing. In terms of community safety, so much of our fleet relates to our public safety vehicles and needs, fire trucks, police cars, all the equipment needed to support that, as well as our facilities. We have some very hardworking folks on the front lines in these essential personnel jobs, working as police officers and firefighters, and yet the facilities we keep asking them to work in are not able to meet up with the modern day needs of our city as we grow and as we rise to meet the challenges that are complex and hard related to community safety. So this is moving us in a direction that also keeps a very keen eye and dedicated eye on affordability. I said this for the last several months, and I always have believed this as a resident of Burlington for over 20 years. Our economic diversity is what keeps us special, and we have to keep an eye on affordability while making sure that we're doing the fiscally responsible thing within our means and within the resources we can raise as a community. So these bonds have been vetted very carefully to make sure that we are presenting something that is absolutely needed, but also with a mind of affordability, and you'll hear more on those details as well. Our format for tonight is going to be some presentations to go into the details a bit by 3 folks, 2 from the city, Ashley Parker, who is our Capital Programs Director, who's right to my right, and then Megan Moyer, who is our Division Director of Water Resources from the Department of Public Works. And then finally, our strong partner in the Burlington School District, Tom Flanagan, our superintendent, is here to round out the conversation, because the other money question that will be to voters is, of course, our school budget and our need to understand what we will be asked for. So our format will be, they'll each spend a series of minutes with some hopefully exciting slides with visuals and data and charts that will blow your mind in a good way. And then we'll move into an opportunity to have a town hall kind of style where folks will be able to go to the topic area you're most interested in and be able to dive into a much more meaningful conversation. We'll then wrap up with, you can ask all the questions you want there. And then we'll wrap up with summarizing other opportunities to engage. As I mentioned, this is a kickoff for the next several weeks as we get into town meeting day season, and we want to make sure folks have multiple ways to engage in different parts throughout the city, meetings, informal, passive ways, etc. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our first presenter of the night, Ashley Parker.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome everybody. I'm going to get us kicked off with the General Fund Capital $20 million General Obligation Bond ask. And as we get into some quick slides here, we don't have a ton of time to go through presentations, so I'll try to give you as much detail as I can in a short time. But you can go to the next slide. I'd like to just give a quick overview of what capital is, just so we're all talking about the same thing. And the city actually defines the capital project as one that is funded by the city that involves some kind of construction, renovation, remodeling, parking facilities, street improvements, park recreational construction, remodeling. It does not include any repair or actual regular annual maintenance expenditures. For our purposes, general fund capital includes DPW, fleet, streets, sidewalks, bridges. It also includes our parks, our central facilities, our fire and police, and public art. Next slide, please. All right, so what is our need here? Why are we talking about this? Currently, the city's general fund capital program only receives $2 million a year from our annual borrowing per our city charter. Our current projected forecasted expenditures for the next 6 years really is in the range of $8 to $10 million. So without any additional support in the next few years, especially, we will fall very short of funding any significant capital improvement for the city. A lot of this is due to some continued and ongoing, inflation hitting both the construction and non-construction budgets. But a lot of this is things that just haven't been done over time, and now is the time to really tackle those. All right. So first up, I wanted to just run through some quick fleet. Fleet is one of our most important asset classes. We have 242 fleet, which includes vehicles or equipment in the city on the general fund side, which includes things like our fire trucks, our ambulances, our plow trucks, our sidewalk tractors, our police cruisers. Right now, 30% of our general fund fleet needs to be replaced, and 45% of that is a vehicle or a piece of equipment that is related to public safety. So like our fire, our police, and our snow removals. One of the things that has kind of brought us to this point is we have deferred significant spending in the city's general fund side for fleet for fiscal year 24 and 25. Right now in FY26, we are looking at least $3 million of need on the general fund fleet side. Sidewalks. We have 133 miles of sidewalk infrastructure in our city. DPW has a goal of annually replacing 3 miles of that network a year. Right now, our current estimate for replacing a mile worth of sidewalk is $1 million. And we are estimating that currently we have 17 miles in poor or serious condition. So we have some work to do, and we are projecting over the next 3 years it would be great to get at least $3 million a year to fund our needed replacement. Streets is next. The city has 88 miles in its street network that it owns and maintains. And our goal for maintaining this network of streets is to hit 4 miles a year. And the cost for this is a little bit more than sidewalks. It's at $1.2 million a mile. Right now, our DPW team is projecting at around 10 miles or so that do not meet our acceptable condition. And with this one, again, we're hoping to maybe get enough money to take a large chunk of this. This one does get some support in our street capitals funding, but it's not enough to get us to hit our full goal. Transportation safety is another critical element in our capital plan. I'm going to cover a couple of elements in this one. I'm going to talk about bridges. Right now in our capital plan, the city has 3 bridges that are currently in the plan for having items needing to be taken care of, the Winooski Bridge being one of those. That is one of our major projects for funding right now. And we have a $4 million match that we need to secure for that project, which some of you I'm sure have heard about, partnership with VTrans and Winooski. We also, on the transportation safety side, have a really important program where we do a lot of our planning and implementation of traffic safety measures like traffic calming, some smaller bike ped infrastructure. We estimate that about $300,000 a year would get us 14 new transportation calming measures, whether it's temporary or permanent. And if we were able to secure $300,000 a year for 3 years, that would help us achieve about 75% of the current community requests that are in, which I believe is 56. And that would be amazing. All right, I cannot forget our city buildings. We are in one of those right now. The city owns 19 buildings with at least $700,000 in deferred needs per each building. Right now, I am projecting that if we had $2 million, if all we had was $2 million, we might be able to do some work in maybe 3 of our buildings. That would be great, but it's definitely not enough. On the park side, we also have 37 city parks. And again, about a similar number here. We're looking at about $700,000 of deferred need per park. So again, if we had $2 million, we could spread it across maybe 3 parks. And that depends on the size of the project and the cost of that project. One of the things I want to touch on before I start wrapping it up over the next few slides is I'm really excited about this new capital planning map that we have, and you'll be able to check it out in person here tonight. This is a map that is going to show our next 6 years of capital need across all these general fund asset classes. You'll see in the back on our big screen, but there is a website link in this presentation. We have handouts for you. There's QR codes. If you need access to see this map, we will help you get access to this map. You'll be able to check out different classes and what the need is, where projects are. We have a survey that we really would like all of our community members to take to help us add another layer of data to this map, to add another prioritization matrix for us to evaluate our projects. So please check that out. We really value your feedback, and this will be something that will be ongoing, even beyond the town meeting day consideration. All right, before I go, what is the tax impact? So affordability is of the utmost importance in this consideration, and so we're trying to balance responsible, sustainable investment in our city infrastructure, and also making sure that our residents, our community members can afford your property tax bills. We're doing a lot of things right now with the city FY26 budget process. We have a lot of goals for more efficiency and better planning of our maintenance expenditures, which will all have a positive impact and reduce the liability on the capital plan over time. We also are hoping that if we can get some additional support here with the $20 million, you know, there's more opportunity to leverage more dollars to support grants. We've had a lot of success doing that with past bonds, and we're hoping to continue that. And if we continue to wait on investing in our really critical infrastructure, it's just going to get worse, and the cost will just continue to increase. Annually, the city does relook at its debt policy, and we did that with this ask also. Due to grand list growth and paying down principal payments over time, we did have enough of a gap to free up some $20 million so we can make this general obligation ask. And we wanted to share with you our estimation for the maximum impact on a tax bill. The $20 million would be repaid through small increases starting in FY26. We won't be spending the $20 million out over, all at once. This will be spread out over 3 years. The maximum amount on a $500,000 house, we're estimating to be about $12 a month. And as we're paying off additional debt that the city has, this impact could very possibly go down. And I don't know how much I need to get into this because I think we're going to touch on this later, but yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ashley. Yes, these are, we'll do a little commercial for these particular key date votes. So we'll be going to City Council Board of Finance later in January on what you're hearing tonight, leading up to March 5th, which is the town meeting. And you were right under 10 minutes. I was like timing you. That's great. So well done. But town meeting day is on March 5th, 2025, and it is all resident voting on these matters, but also everyone will be mailed a ballot, and I will mention that at the end as well, which should come out probably second week of February. I don't know where my clerk CAO is. I'm seeing nods, and she's saying, yeah. February 10th or 12th, which I think is the second week of February. This is why mayors talk in generalities when necessary. And I also just want to appreciate and just lift up another moment of engagement. Ashley mentioned the fiscal year 26 budget, which we are not speaking to directly tonight, but you can learn a lot more about on a high level how that budget is shaping up on January 13th, this upcoming Monday, a week from today. Catherine Schad, our CAO, and I will be presenting on that budget with high-level overview of where the budget gap is at currently and our plans for closing that gap, including what that impact that would have on the local tax bill. So thank you very much, Ashley. Appreciate it. And I really appreciate some of the new elements also in the efforts from the Capitol team around giving opportunities for you all to participate. That survey I want to just underscore here is a great new opportunity for folks to help inform us as city leadership on what the priorities should be. We want to have your input. We want to have your thoughts around sidewalks, et cetera, what we should be really focusing on. And we hope to build on this from years to come in terms of other meaningful ways to participate. All right, next up, we're going to hear from Megan Moyer.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Great to be here with the whole group because we can't be pitting any one of these things against one another, right? Burlington needs all of these things. It needs all of the general fund capital assets. It needs the schools. And then you can't have either of those things without toilets and drinking water. So that's where I come in. So I've talked with a lot of different groups, NPAs, councils, et cetera. This is a little bit of a summary for folks who haven't seen my full in-depth presentation. I've got my fantastic team here to answer any and all of your questions you've ever wanted to ask about existing things as well as future things, but let's get into the wave tops and get into the final number that I have come up with what we're going to do for the bond. First of all the costs and rates that we talk about here, those are all ratepayer based. So that doesn't come from anything in the property taxes. It's all the numbers that you pay on your water, sewer, and stormwater bill. Water doesn't currently have any charter authority for borrowing. So when we need to do these big capital investments, we have to go out for these big bonds. Otherwise, we're just paying cash, which again would come off of your what we earn from you from the bills, and that's not enough for some of the things that we need to do right now. So, we did a whole chunk of investment with the money that the voters approved in 2018. We expressed at the time that that was not going to be everything. We certainly hoped that it was going to go further, but as we dove further and further into our wastewater treatment plants and some of our infrastructure, we quickly realized that the need was much greater than what we had anticipated in 2018. And so what we're bringing to you now is, the reason is really we need to be able to do all of these things to provide reliable and sustainable drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater services, not just to the current Burlington, but to the future Burlington. The mayor mentioned the growth that we need to have in the city, that Vermont needs to have, and that can't happen unless we do some expansions to our system. At the base of that, we have to make sure, can you go back? We have to make sure that our existing infrastructure, before we even talk about expansion, our existing infrastructure has to stay working. That's what's been keeping the lake safe. That's what's keeping our drinking water safe. We got to keep that going. A lot of our systems, when we look at the grades, a risk grade, over 50% of the systems that we're going to talk about tonight are at a C grade or worse, with a significant portion at a D or F grade, meaning that they are imminently about to fail. We need to have that sufficient capacity. We need to have the resiliency against climate change. These systems were built in the 1990s when standards were different and we don't have as many layers of protection. So when something fails, we don't have as many backups as we need. And then at the end of the day, there's safety and code upgrades that need to happen for our staff. We have an incredibly hardworking team of people, and they are exposed to very harsh conditions, as well as very harsh realities of coming to work every day when X, Y, or Z might break, and you got to keep it going so that we can still keep processing the water. Next slide. On the other side, we have to protect the lake. We know that she's been struggling in the recent years, and at the base of that is keeping our existing infrastructure running. There's a lot of beach closures that we may not be able to prevent because of climate change, because of what Vermont is needing to do with phosphorus, but there are a lot of things that we can prevent. And the beach closures that we had in 2018, if people here remember those were preventable. Had we been able to invest in our infrastructure and not let those things fail, we would not have had 13 million gallons of sewage going into the lake, and that's what we're trying to prevent. We also Burlington needs to do its part to reduce phosphorus discharges from Burlington. The rest of Vermont also needs to do its part, but we can only control what we can control, and part of this, is my mic cutting out? It sounds like it is. Can you upgrade this too, Ashley? So part of our plan is to install tertiary treatment. So it's a third layer of wastewater treatment that will strip out the last bits of phosphorus that we can get with technology. And then, as always, we have to continue the fight of reducing combined sewer overflows. Next slide. So our main sort of crux projects, and we've got lots of slides over there and lots of people to talk to you about this. One of them is the wastewater treatment plant improvements project. Next slide. We have 3 wastewater treatment plants. It's a lot of plants for a small city. We have North Plant up at the end of North Ave. We have East Plant on Riverside and Main, which is our largest treatment plant facility. Upgrades are needed at all of those, and in particular, one of our plans, which will tell you more about the story, is to consolidate East Plant to Main Plant because it will save ratepayers money over the long term. But one of the interesting patterns you'll see is first of all, the plants were only built in the 1950s and 60s, which still blows my mind. But then they were upgraded on a fairly regular basis, 1970s, 1990s. We're in 2024. We are already well beyond the 20-year time horizon that plants are supposed to be upgraded. And so we need to do this. The upgrades that we're pursuing fall loosely into 5 buckets. Resiliency, those improvements that we need to make to increase redundancy and make sure our existing equipment works. There's the environmental enhancements, the tertiary phosphorus removal that I mentioned. There's the capacity increase. We're expanding capacity at Main Plant, not mostly so that we can bring over East Plant, but also so that we can be more flexible with where growth is going to happen within the city. And that is going to be necessary when we look at the time horizon of all of the parcels that should have a reasonable potential to be developed. There's the work safety piece that we mentioned for our workers, and yay, odors. We are going to be doing some process changes that we're going to monitor. We don't know if it's everything that we need to do, and we're prepared to come back to it if necessary, but there are some significant capital-related process changes that should reduce the amount of odors that come from Main Plant, which we know we can all get excited about. Next slide. The other crux project of the water bond, so we talked about the lake bond, and this is the big project within the drinking water bond, is the reservoir improvements project. This cute little house on Main Street used to be just the gatehouse for the reservoir. You can go to the next slide, actually. We have a 7 million gallon reservoir up on Main Street, and this is where water is pumped. And actually you can go to the next slide. The importance of this reservoir, basically water is pumped from the drinking water plant down at the lakeside, and it's pumped up to the reservoirs. The reservoir itself acts as an emergency storage for the entire city. So if the plant needs to shut down for maintenance, or sometimes it happens, emergencies, things break, and we have to shut down, that water serves to supply the entire city with water. Also, very importantly, that reservoir is what is used to pump water up to the elevated tanks. We have 2 elevated tanks, one on the UVM campus and one on the Redstone campus. And those tanks are what feed what's called the high service, which is this blue area of the city, more or less on the top of the hill on the east side of Willard Street. Very importantly, what's in the high service? UVM Medical Center, the region's only level 1 trauma center. Without the pumps, without the gatehouse, that little building that we were talking about, and without the project that we are proposing to pursue with the water bond, if those pumps fail, we have no way to get water to the hospital, and a hospital without water is not a very good hospital. Next slide. Similar to the drinking water plant, to the wastewater treatment plant, when we did a risk scoring of the system components of the reservoir, not a terrible surprise given how long it's been since we've been able to upgrade this, given that the house itself was built in 1867 and has some structural issues, but 65% of those systems within that drinking water reservoir pump station are at a C grade or worse, with 42% at a D, basically needing replacement in the next 1 to 3 years, and a number of items at an F grade. This condition presents a huge risk for the city of Burlington and for the hospital. Next slide. So, lots of information here. There's a repeat of this slide over there where you can zoom in, but if you came to my previous presentations, not that the number that I'm going to present to you is not still somewhat eye-popping, but the number that we presented before was larger. And why is that? That is because we, staff, were originally recommending, and it would be our preference, to bring forward all of the items in yellow that you see here. So that's all of stage 1 as well as part of stage 2, which functionally would have addressed all of our needs at all 3 wastewater treatment plants. So the needs at main plant, north plant, and then the consolidation of east plant to main plant. After a lot of community feedback, a lot of feedback from the council, and some soul searching about what we could sort of spread out, we've come up with this plan, which is to go for all of stage 1 in 2025, and then to communicate to you all that we will be back, likely as early as 2027. Maybe it'll be 2028, but it could be as early as 2027 for stage 2. And furthermore, part of stage 2 may include us knowing at that time what investments are necessary at our drinking water plant, which also has not been upgraded since for 40 years, not since the 1940s. And, you know, in general, and I think this is the message that we all need to understand, running a city is like owning an old house. You're never actually done. You replace the windows, then you got to replace the roof, then you got to repaint the house. It is a continuous cycle, and we're doing our best as staff to spread it out and to do it intelligently and to do it at the right time so that we're not spending more than we needed to. But there's going to be more, and we're going to work with you in the community and with others to try to piece it together. So next slide. So here are the new numbers. Originally, the numbers were 21 million for drinking water, and then a total of, I think, originally 214 million for the lake bond, which is wastewater and stormwater. And with the changes that we've made, we have brought that down to what is a more reasonable number of 152 million for wastewater and stormwater and 20 million for drinking water. Next slide. What does that do? The original rate projections that I presented, which those were conservative, these are still conservative. And what's important is this rate plan actually includes those elements in stage 2 that I said we're going to come back for. They're so important that I'm not leaving them out of this model because I think that would be disingenuous to do so. So by spreading things out, doing the best that we can, and lots can change to hopefully shrink this number, we're now, instead of looking at a 113% rate increase over the 5 years from 2025 to 2030, we're looking at about a 90% increase, which the bulk of which will happen in FY 26, 27, and 28, with some fairly hefty rate increases, and then it will taper off based on the information we have now. Similarly, when you look at the monthly impact on a typical bill, for those 5 years, you are looking in the roughly $9 to $11 per month increase range. I think that's it with this slide. Next slide. Yep. Affordability. In FY22, we worked with the council to bring forward Burlington and I believe Vermont's first water resources affordability program. This was just us getting started. We don't know exactly where we need to go. We need to first really determine the best benchmarks of affordability. When we've started looking at what the industry standards are, technically, even with these rate increases, Burlington doesn't have a water affordability problem. But that message at the top is very concerning to us. We want to make sure that we have affordable water bills that a household can regularly and successfully pay on time without compromising its ability to meet other essential needs, right? We don't want our essential water services to put somebody in a place where they're having to choose between paying their water bill and buying proper food or medicine, for their family. And working together, I think we're going to be able to come up with what the next turn of the wheel is and who we need to help, and to what extent the rest of the community is willing to help those people, because when we do have those programs, it will mean that other people will have to subsidize those lower rates for folks. So it's a big conversation that we need to have, and we plan on making sure that we get to that point with the city council before we would, I would say, issue significant debt. We may need to issue a small amount of debt in the near term, but before we get into the big debt for wastewater and the drinking water system, we want to make sure we have those programs in place. I think that's it. Let's see. Oh, summary. So we will be bringing to the council a request to put 2 ballot items on for the March town meeting day, a $20 million water bond and this $152 million lake bond. These investments are necessary for Burlington and for the lake, and we have the typical residential bill increase. So your bill may be slightly different, so make sure you go and look at your bill, and if you use more than 400 cubic feet or less than 400 cubic feet, it'll be a little bit different, but we have a whole team of people to help talk to you about your water bill and about our existing affordability programs.
You good? Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, Megan. And I really want to lift up in particular, because I learn something every time I hear this presentation, that we have the first affordability program in the state of Vermont for our water program, and that is notable. And as Megan mentioned, we are continuing to dig deeper because we know we need to make sure it's an equitable program and that we do everything we can to make all these aspects affordable for residents and businesses here in Burlington. And I don't know about you, but when you look at your water bill, sometimes you don't know what that's about. So I think this is also a great opportunity to educate yourself just as of today, what does go into your water bill and what are all the different elements there as well. Okay. And so last but not least, Tom Flanagan, our superintendent of schools here in Burlington, is here to talk about the school budget.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity, Mayor, to be here tonight with you all, and to thank you all for being here as well. I'm here, our board chair, Claire Wool, is in the back there, and Nathan Lavery, our executive director of finance and operations, will be around if you want to talk after our presentation as well. And so we're presenting the fiscal year 26 budget for the school board, for the school district. So our budget, we meet with our school board tomorrow night and present for the 4th time a budget update, and we start budget updates in the fall and just move those, do about one a month until about now. We'll have a second board meeting this month on the 21st to present the final budget for the board, where I recommend the budget to the school board. The school board takes action on my recommendation. And so we start, though, with our school board's guidance for us and use that as a direction point for the way that we budget each year as a school district. And so the first 4, the school board gave us 6 pieces of guidance. 4 of those pieces of guidance are the same guidance that we've had the past couple of years. And I'll just walk through those. The first is that staffing needs to be responsive to enrollment changes. So we have an equitable staffing model that provides a foundational staffing level for each school. And our enrollment has been slightly declining, or has declined significantly over the past 10 years, and there's been some slight declines over the last couple of years. And so we have to make sure that the budget is always responsive to the enrollment in our schools. And we're hoping that enrollment grows. Our schools are healthy and vibrant places. And so but we do need to be responsible here and make sure that the enrollment is driving the way that we staff our schools. We need to limit our overall budget growth beyond the budget growth that the new BHS BTC building is requiring of us. So that's a big investment of our community that we've been really grateful for the support for that. I think people know, teachers in the room who are in that building and staff across the district, and all of you who have kids in the schools and know our schools well, understand the need, have understood the need there, and we're really grateful for the support there. The board asked us to ensure that we fund our strategic plan. We're in the third year of a co-constructed strategic plan that we built with our community, with some of you in the room, and folks across town. And we continue to work on that strategic plan intentionally and seriously, and so they want us to continue to do that. Number 4 is they want us to offer rigorous academic curriculum and programs for all of our learners. They want us to continue to provide robust education and offerings that include middle school athletics and a full range of high school athletics and music and art and all the things that make school a place that students want to come and engage. The last 2 are new pieces of budget guidance from the board, and that is that we're needing to make sure the biggest impact on our budget is our wages and benefits. So we need to make sure that we're mindful of that as we're budgeting, and that we needed to find ways to reduce the cost per pupil, because the budget last year was a challenging budget across the state and in Burlington, and so we're needing to look for savings where we can. So there are a couple of assumptions that play in. I sort of talked a little bit about this in the last slide. These are the assumptions and some of the pressures on the budget annually every year. Wages and benefits are the big impact to the budget. Debt service, that's mostly BHS and BTC. And finally, we have a little bit of a structural challenge with our federal grants. So we get annually, we get federal grants from the feds, and those those tend to be flat. We get the same number every year, but the cost of running those services increases every year. And so we have to make sure that we're balancing that year over year. So we're doing that this year. So the recommendation for the board this year is that I'm going to make tomorrow night and then again on the 21st, unless something changes between tomorrow night and the 21st, is that we are going to maintain our current level of service. So we are going to continue to align our staffing to enrollment. So we have a couple of small reductions in staffing. The way that I describe this is it tends to be in elementary school in particular is an example where we may have 3 5th grade classrooms and only 2 4th grade classes. And so as students move up, we don't need 3 5th grade classrooms because we only have 2 4th grade classrooms coming up. So we may reduce a teacher in a school where that is the teaching position in a school where that's the case. Thankfully, and we've done this the past couple of years as a part of our equitable budgeting model. Thankfully, we've been able to find places. We value our educators and teachers and staff, and we want to make sure we find places for them in our school. And so we've always prioritized finding places for our staff when they're impacted. But again, that's a very small number of folks that will be impacted this year. I'm going to recommend driving funds towards students who need it the most. So part of our equitable budgeting model uses a weighted pupil allocation that drives additional funding to individual schools based on the level of need in those schools. And then school advisory groups have the opportunity at the school to make decisions about how best to utilize those funds for their students. And so we drove additional funds toward the RISE allocations this year because the weights changed a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a second. The third thing in the budget that I'm recommending is that we continue for a second year to reduce central office budgets slightly, so about a 2% reduction in overall central office budgets. And then we're balancing that by the reductions, so they're sort of one for one, by adding some funds to do regular maintenance of our buildings. We've used the entirety of the capital bond from 2017 and to go toward some great projects like Integrated Arts Academy and other projects around the district. But we've utilized those funds, and so we need to make sure year over year we're budgeting for the ability to replace doors that are rusted out or a boiler that is needing to be maintained. All in all, and this number is not final yet because we got an updated number from the Agency of Education today, and we're supposed to get the final numbers from them next week. But we had the big adjustments in the numbers that they send us happened a few weeks ago, so we feel pretty confident about where these numbers are landing now. And so the overall budget proposal would result in an estimated 2% tax decrease. Yay! So, like I said, the number itself, could fluctuate a tiny bit, but we wouldn't be here if we didn't have real confidence in that number and what was behind that number. So these are some specific changes to the budget proposal. I'm going to skip this slide and move to the next one. This one, and this is, we'll be at the table, so if anyone wants to come around and talk to us about this. I think the big thing to note here is in the far right-hand column where it says education spending per pupil / long-term weighted ADM. ADM is average daily membership. So our school board, along with a number of school boards across the state, developed a coalition 4 years ago to advocate for an updated weighted pupil so that the state Agency of Education would appropriately fund school districts based on their level of need. The formula that they used prior to this updated formula did not appropriately calculate for students who are living in poverty, experiencing poverty, and students who are multilingual learners. And so that's over 50% of our school population. And so our school board did a really amazing job of developing a coalition, working across the state with other districts that were also impacted, small rural districts, Rutland and Bennington, and some other districts around the state to get an updated weighted pupil through Act 127. And so you see a pretty big difference between the numbers in fiscal year 24 there, that 21,000, down to fiscal year 25, the 13,000. And that just shows the impact of the weighted pupil, the Act 127 and what that did. And we are now feeling that in the budget that we're proposing for next year. We didn't feel it last year because we were paying for the high school, number one, and number two, the Ed Fund, which supports all of the spending across the state, is sort of the combination of all the district's spending and revenue that comes in was not in a healthy place. And so the Ed Fund is in a healthier place this year, and the weighted pupils, this updated statute is doing its work for Burlington in a really significant way. And so that's really the big thing that is leading to the projected negative 2% tax decrease. And with that, I think that's actually it. We're meeting tomorrow night at the school board with the school board to discuss this, and that is at Hunt Middle School at 6 p.m. and then we'll meet again on January 21st.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Flanagan. Again, I don't think people expected a 2% decrease. I mean, as we put this full picture together for you, I really want to emphasize my deep appreciation to the school district as we continue to find ways to coordinate and really put our collective efforts together for residents here in Burlington and amongst beyond even money. Tom and I have actually developed quite a relationship so far, and at least in my first 9 months. That's a really strong thing for Burlington, and I want to appreciate Chair Wool, who's here in the back, especially since you haven't even gone to your full school board with this information. To me, that's such a good faith effort to make sure we're working in as much coordination as possible, given our short timeline ahead of town meeting. So thank you for all your hard work. That is a sizable amount of work, I'm sure, to get to a place where there's potentially a 2% decrease on the school budget side of it, which is the vast majority of property taxpayers' bills here in Burlington. Maybe we could do a whole other education session on understanding the complexities of education funding, because it is a thing. And I also just want to really acknowledge it took years to get us to a place where the per pupil weights made it through the legislative process. As a former legislator, I know it was strong support amongst the Burlington State Delegation, our school board, and a lot of rural communities who were facing similar challenges of the weights not being equitable in the state for years. And now finally Burlington has a bit of relief, and that is very noteworthy as well. And then the final shout I'll give is because the city side of the budgeting process is certainly trying to get there. The equitable budgeting practices for which the school district has really stewarded forward is something very noteworthy, and the city is hoping to kind of really learn from the school district and bring that forward. Small efforts of that include making sure whether we're educating all of you on what the budget is, so it is not an opaque document, that you understand what bonds are, that you understand what the fiscal year's operating budgets are for the general fund for your city. So thank you very much again, Tom, for being here. We appreciate it. So what we're going to do next, y'all, as we wrap up this portion of the evening, is to make sure you know there's multiple ways to engage with the information we've shared here tonight. So tell your friends, your families, your coworkers who want to get into the weeds on policy, fiscal policy at that. You can come to the next or tune in to the next 2 city council meetings, which are scheduled for January 13th and 27th of this month, January. There's upcoming MPA meetings where we'll go much more into the GO bond, which is the general obligation bond that Ashley was mentioning before. You can spend some quality time with me and Ashley and Catherine. It will be a good time at your local MPAs. We'll do more meetings to be announced for other MPAs. We're trying to get to all of the wards. Our DPW folks have already gone to most MPAs, all MPAs at this, I can't remember. Most MPAs, again, Mayor Talk, most MPAs we've been to. And so those are recorded in terms of the wastewater water bonds. And then finally, we've dedicated a website, so you have one landing place to get basic information, and as we continue to populate this page, you can find it on the city website. There's 2 different sources, one for our water-related bonds and one for the GO bond. You'll find the community survey there and this interactive map, which is a first-time thing for the city. And I'll just wrap up by saying for this portion, I want to remind folks March 5th is town meeting day this year. We have all resident voting on local questions, which is a great thing for the city of Burlington. And ballots will be mailed apparently somewhere between February 10th and February 12th. So remember, we have all ballot access in terms of it coming directly to you. And with that, we'll wrap up this portion and move now into sort of the town hall, visit different tables and engage with city staff to ask whatever questions you might have. We have parks related, I'll give you a little orientation, parks related information in the far corner this way. We have fire folks and probably public safety and fleet on the table next to that. Fleet, again, being our vehicles and equipment. I cannot see that far back about what's over here, but it's exciting. Probably sidewalks. That looks like a broken sidewalk to me. So if you want to learn about sidewalks, it looks like the one that was in front of my house for many years. And then that was not shade. It's just we're all in it together. And then over here we have our water friends and then our school district colleagues here in this corner. So we'll spend, we'll be here until 7:15 or so. So please mingle. And thank you again so much for coming out tonight.